Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Taproom Success Show. I'm Kerry Shumway, joined as always by my good buddy Andrew Copeland. Andrew, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Carrie. Offline, we were talking about, well, not offline, off air, I should say. We were talking about the Craft Brewers Conference coming up in April. I'm excited to see you in person soon. I mean, it's about a month and a half away, but it's gonna good to see so many faces.
I am excited as well, and it's in Philadelphia, which is, somewhat more regional for us instead of traveling across the country. So I'm excited for that too, a relatively short trip. But I hope it's well attended. I know recent years we've seen some decline, so hopefully we'll see more people turn out.
I know a bit of my friends here on the East Coast, and you're on the East Coast too, of course, are excited to have something a little closer to home. So hopefully, my fellow brewery industry professionals in Virginia are going to make the trip or train as I am up there.
You mentioned train, and I was like, I'm not sure I've ever been I mean, I've been on a train, but not like, how should I travel? It's always like, gosh, can I drive or should I jump on a plane? But that train idea is kind of interesting. I like that. I'm gonna have to
I
look into
actually wasn't even thinking train. Then a buddy of mine who used to work in Philly a lot was like, "Have you thought about taking the Amtrak?" I'm like, "Oh, that could be really fun, actually." And I looked it up, quite affordable.
what.
Granted, I am now switched from just a train route to half bus, half train, which I'm not as looking forward to, but I don't have to drive. I don't have to worry about parking. It's going to be a fairly easy way to get up there.
Yeah, you're an adventurous traveler too. So you like those maybe it's a few twists and turns, but you'll have an adventure along the way.
As long as I get there on time.
That's good.
So I've got a really, really random question for you
Oh,
here.
good. I love random questions.
Random questions. So, did either of your kids, I know they're grown now, but did either of them, well, maybe they still do, play Minecraft?
They did. They both played Minecraft. My son was very much into it to the point where we had to like shut him off. My daughter would do it, but she was much more just sort of dabbling, creative, more healthy, I would think. My son was really like into it. But yeah, they both did.
It's interesting. So, for my son now, he's in first grade, and I think he was into the concept of Minecraft before he even knew what it was. And we just assumed all the kids were talking about it at school. But I don't think that was really the case. Maybe he saw it in a commercial or a lunchbox, but he, around the time of his last birthday, really wanted Minecraft, the game actually on his tablet. And we were very against it at first. We finally gave in as a big birthday present. And then he started playing it, and like we watched the Minecraft movie, which wasn't half bad, and he just loved building. And for me personally, I think it's a little wonky. I don't really love the graphics, but hey, the kids are into it these days. So I'm like, okay, well, we'll support you in some way. Although it got to a level, and I don't know if this was a thing when your kids were into it, kids like watching other kids play Minecraft on YouTube, and that's terrible. We finally squashed that, but that was, oh my gosh.
That's a thing. No, I've seen even my son, he's now in his early 20s, but it's not Minecraft anymore. He shifted to like the FIFA soccer game and whatnot. But yeah, they'll watch
Have you ever
someone.
watched a real soccer game with him?
Oh yeah, real
Come on,
soccer.
Dad.
No, he runs the full gamut. Like he'll go live. He played soccer, all the things, and now it's sort of like, this 360-degree view of all things soccer and games and whatnot. But yeah, I totally see that where it's like, at first I thought, boy, that's really weird. But then it was like, well, I don't know, because I do a lot of YouTubes for like how do I fix my snowblower or something like that, and it's like, I'm sitting there watching a guy with a wrench, drain the oil, and I'm like, that's kind of weird too. But I guess this is how we
More of
learn.
like a how-to type situation versus I don't know what you call the other.
I know it's true.
I'm
I
at a
was
loss
trying
for
to make a
words.
case for it, but I'm not sure I can. That's as far as I can take it.
Well, the reason I mentioned this is, with him playing Minecraft so much, I learn a little bit. I try to support it, and I do know that in Minecraft, on one hand you have survival mode, and the other hand you have creative mode. So I'm just thinking one day, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's kind of like where we are in an industry, which I'll get to in a second. But like in Minecraft, for anyone out there who doesn't play, survival mode is what you play by default. You literally start with nothing, kind of like starting with the brewery. You have to raise money, you gather your resources, you have to manage everything, your food, your health, you have to defend yourself, and every block that you get, it costs time and there's risks to doing it. So that's like one side. And the other mode, which kind of is like, well, the other mode is called creative mode. And in that mode, you have unlimited resources, which really isn't reality, but you can fly. And like there's nothing dangerous. It kind of makes me think of one time I went to Iceland and I was just hiking around like the wilderness, so to speak. There was no squirrels, there was no bears, there was no mosquitoes. It was amazing. So imagine just having no danger. You can kind of like do whatever you want. But in the real world, we're in survival mode. Things are tough. You have to worry about your cash flow. You have to worry about if your staff's going to show up. You have to worry about rising costs. And there's like competition like all over the place. So while, it's nice to think about being in creative mode, by default, we're just kind of stuck in that survival mode and we're always reacting to all these outside pressures.
So you're afraid of the squirrels? Like you were saying, like the dangers of
You're
were
taking
they,
that the wrong way. I'm not
is there
afraid
a
of
story
squirrels,
behind the
Carrie. I'm just
squirrels?
saying maybe I didn't even mean squirrels, but in Iceland, and I love how you're just diving into this one little detail. Let's just say bears instead of squirrels. You just feel really safe when you're out there. There's no concerns. I'm not
Yeah.
scared of squirrels.
All right. So you've given us some examples of like how you kind of correlate Minecraft survival mode, creative mode. How else do you kind of like take this analogy and
Yeah.
examples of what a taproom and
So
survival mode
I,
is?
I think breweries and tap rooms were in survival mode so often, and it's fairly normal. But often we're operating and we're reacting instead of intentionally designing experiences and being a little more creative and thinking outside the box. So breweries and tap rooms, for example, you might be in survival mode if you're doing some of these things. Maybe you're just brewing what feels like really, really safe versus experimenting. Or maybe you're not scheduling new events or different events just because they feel a little risky. Or maybe on a busy Saturday, you're scheduling the absolute minimum staff instead of trying out like one or two more people that could actually benefit you. Or maybe you're making pricing decisions based off fear. Or maybe you're only marketing when you see your sales drop. You're not spending because you're just being a little too cautious. But when you see sales drop, well, maybe you would market then. That's being really reactive. Or maybe you're also just putting out fires without actually focusing on the actual problem. And in all those situations, you're just trying to survive. And I think so many of us are kind of stuck in that survival mode. Would you say that's kind of something you feel or you see, Carrie?
I think so. I mean, we get in a rut for sure, and then you're just trying to hang on. And a lot of times, if there's trouble, rather than it's hard to step back and kind of reassess, logically what's going on. You just tend to work harder, right? We're just going to work harder. I'm going to work harder. And what we end up doing maybe is just digging the hole deeper, as opposed to stepping back and saying, all right, am I working harder on the right things? Like, what is fundamentally the problem here? If it's cash flow, profit, not enough customers coming in, do we understand the root cause of what's going on? And it's hard to do that when you're stuck, like you said, in reactive mode.
And definitely. Now, I want to dive a little bit deeper into one of the examples I gave because everybody often struggles with staffing. Let's pretend sometimes you have two staff on, sometimes you have three, but you make the choice, you know what, we can handle it with just two of us. So you have two busy bartenders, two bartenders, the shift's busier than expected. No one can walk the floor. No one can walk around to pick up empty glasses. Maybe the manager's like even stuck behind the bar, and no one really has the ability or time to proactively engage with guests. You're just taking them transaction after transaction after transaction, very little time, if any, to educate, offer recommendations. And what if there was an actual problem that happened? You're down to one person behind the bar. It's kind of taking away that relationship aspect, and people are becoming numbers versus actual people you get to know. And I think often people will talk about, oh, well, we're being lean. I think there's a difference between lean and kind of cutting back like this. When you're being lean, you're analyzing data, you're being really intentional, you're finding ways to still provide that quality guest experience, but being short staffed is when you're just trying to save a couple bucks and fingers crossed that nothing goes wrong. And that's survival mode. And what you see when your tap room kind of shifts into that survival mode, Carrie, is the engagement drops. People spend less. The floor of the tap room can become a mess sometimes. Imagine all the kids out there eating goldfish with no one to clean them up. That's going to turn into a freaking disaster. You don't have the opportunity to build creatively. And I think what you really need to do is find ways to get back in creative mode. And I'm going to prompt you right now. I'm going to see if you can get on my wavelength because normally we are. what's one of our favorite activities or icebreaker like things to kind of really get those creative juices flowing?
The workshopper playbook.
Workshop or playbook. Yes,
Nailed it.
that's one of my favorite things. And I'm sure you and I have talked about it on here before. But essentially what the workshop or playbook is, and we can link to it following, is you brainstorm a ton of ideas. Let's say you want to think of ideas to increase taproom traffic on the afternoons. So you brainstorm all of these ideas. Then you and your team highlight the top 10. Out of 50 ideas that your team creates, you get the 10 best ones. They could be things like, oh, maybe we could do happy hour pricing, maybe appetizer specials. Maybe we can encourage remote workers to come in. Maybe we could do after school specials for parents and kids to come in and do their homework in the tap room instead of going home. So you have all these crazy ideas that could bring in afternoon traffic. And then what you do is you kind of plot them on an axis of impact versus effort. Effort meaning how much work it's going to take to do this. Is it going to be something you can just put one post up on social media, super easy, or is it going to take you doing like a couple weeks worth of planning? And the impact side of things is, are you going to see a significant results from it, as in people spending a lot more money, or is it more just going to be a very, very small, drop in the bucket? So think about it for impact versus effort. Often we like to do things that are low effort, pretty easy to do, and high impact. So the example that I dove deeper this into the blog that I wrote was, let's think about like an after school parents meetup. You think about all these parents. They're picking their kids up from the school. They don't have anything to do till dinner, maybe 3 hours later. Where are they going to go? They're going to go home. But how could you give them a reason to come to your brewery, your tap room? You're simply just changing their mindset. You're giving them a different turn they have to take on their route home. So maybe you do like some sort of special session for, hey, parents and kids after school. We're not inviting them to take over the whole tap room, but we're saying, hey, this corner over there is for kids and parents who want a place just to wind down after a long day at school. Maybe you do like a snack special or just something to kind of give them that extra motivation thing. The goal is this day that you do it, you're going to see that bump. And maybe you choose Wednesdays, and maybe every Wednesday from 3 to 5, you build this up and it actually works. And something like this example, it's getting you more in creative mode. With creative mode, we talk about having unlimited resources, but something like this doesn't require unlimited money. It's just doing something you're not currently doing, being really intentional to attract this certain audience and testing this idea out and hoping you see results. And I think the moral of the story is we need to be more in creative mode, because if we're just constantly reacting, trying to survive, we could lose that creativity we used to love. Brewing that beer that you haven't brewed in a while, but you want to see how it comes out. Doing that event that you've always wanted to do, that maybe it falls flat, but maybe it's that next best idea that you have that really, really draws in traffic on an afternoon or that night that's already dead. I think we really need to intentionally spend time thinking outside the box. Otherwise, we get stuck in these ruts and we're just fighting to survive.
It's
That's my
true.
rant, Gary, for
That's a
the
good
for the
rant. I
morning.
like that rant. And I think too, a lot of these, how do you get out of that rut? I think the workshopper playbook is a really good framework to do that, and it's a good exercise, and it can be a lot of fun, and it doesn't cost anything, and it doesn't take a lot of time, but the results can be really good. The other thing I like to think about just as a triggering mechanism, because people are listening like, I get it, but I still short-staffed and I still got to work 14 hours a day and I'm blah blah blah, and it's hard. Is one mental model that I've found useful is this 70-20-10, which is 70% of your, resources, time, energy, and effort is really focused on that core. Like I got to get just my core business done, customer service. 20% is, hey, I want to work on new stuff, innovation, whether that's within the portfolio, or even in the business model, doing reach outs, as you said, and trying to, bring in different clientele. And then 10% is just crazy wild ass stuff, just like moonshots, as they would say, like just go bananas. Like go back to the example of the squirrels, and what if you couldn't fail type of what if there were no
How did you
squirrels?
come back to squirrels? I
What
don't
a
even know,
safe
but
world
okay.
we would live in if there would be no squirrels. And then you can take 10% of that and just be like, dream, right? Just go nuts. Because I do think that's what tends to happen is
Did you intentionally say the word nuts in a conversation about squirrels, or did it just come
it's
out? You
all
did. Okay.
coming
You're
full circle.
intentional.
It's
Yeah.
coming full circle here. So yeah, think of the squirrels, think of the nuts, 10% moonshots. And that helps to open things up a little bit too. And no, but to your point, creative one, how do you get creative? Sometimes you have to have a trigger that's going to get you there. Because the other problem is it can be rock bottom. It's like, well, I have no choice now. And at that point, creativity, it's kind of too late for that. So think about those things. Yeah, workshop or playbook, 70-20-10, a
And
world
put
where
time on your calendar, everybody. Everybody is so busy, but maybe start with 30 minutes a week just to be a little creative. Maybe it's a brainstorming activity. Maybe you're just reviewing everything from last week, what you can do better, what you can do differently. I think the key word here is being intentional, because if you don't act intentionally, it's so easy just to be fighting those fires.
that sounds like something from Unreasonable Hospitality.
And you're finally reading it. What do you think?
I think it's great. No, no, it's really, really good. He's a very interesting guy. I'm looking forward to hearing it. How do you pronounce his last name? Will
Oh,
Guidara?
Will Guidara,
Guidara.
Guidara, Guidara. I always feel
Yeah.
like I'm saying it incorrectly.
Yeah, yeah. I think it'll be really good and a message that we really need to hear these days, right? It's just I think it's aspirational, it's hope, it's creativity, I think it's gonna hit all the right notes. But yeah, for those who are stuck in that survival mode, it's what is your triggering mechanism to get out of that, to get creative, to think about the business differently. And I like this phrase of, what if I did the opposite, right? Because a lot of times it's like, well, what are you doing in order to improve that? I'm working harder, I'm working harder. Well, what if you did the opposite, What if you shut down for a day and spent it on create this workshop or idea and, really reimagining the strategy? What's the worst that's going to happen, You might get a refresh, you might come up with some great ideas, but might be worth trying.
Yeah, don't stop being creative. That's why we all got in this industry. And for everyone who likes to have conversations about creativity, I love the mastermind we had a couple weeks ago. We saw so many people from all across the country just brainstorming ideas, solving problems. That's what I love most about this industry. So we'd love to have you join us at Taproom Success. We have conversations with your peers from across the country. We bring in industry experts. We've got tons of pre-recorded content from you, from both Carrie and I, and from past industry experts. You can learn more at taproomsuccess.com. And everybody, be intentional, be creative, and we'll see you soon.